From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, I want to welcome you to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we celebrate every single Monday at lunchtime the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi, because we are the capital of the outdoors in America. I want to thank you for joining us on the super powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Radio Network, or on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV. But if you're listening on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast, it is November the 14th, 2022. Where did this year go? Unbelievable how fast it went by. As we barrel toward the opening of white-tailed deer gun season in Mississippi. Hey, by the way, I say every week that we're coming to you from the Foundation Studio, where we really appreciate you joining us on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi Media Network. The Foundation is working so hard every single day to protect the outdoors heritage in the great state of Mississippi. We really appreciate them being the title sponsor for SuperTalk Outdoors. You know, this past weekend was the annual youth hunt at Delta Bluffs, my place up in the Mississippi Delta. It was so much fun. We had a couple members that couldn't make it at the last minute, but I had my two nephews, Peter and Nico Bohanovich, my son Jordan, and then our dear friend Jake Carter and his daughter Ava with us, and we just had a great time. I mean, the weather. Look back on the weather this weekend. That after all those warm days, we had a nice blast of cold weather. The food plots got some rain, and we're finally getting to where it's starting to feel and look like deer hunting. And listen, Saturday afternoon, it was absolutely world-class hunting. All three kids that were hunting, each of them got an 8-point, and it was just an incredible experience. The whole weekend was just an incredible experience. I say this all the time, that a family that hunts together, enjoys the outdoors together, they stay together. And I reflect on this past weekend and the memories we made that will last a lifetime. It's so special. And as I think about the family who hunts together, stays together, I can't help but think about my friend Cuzz Strickland from Mossy Oaks. And I decided to ask Cuzz to join me today and talk about bringing the family outdoors and why that's important to us. And without any further ado, let me welcome my friend Cuzz Strickland back to SuperTalk Outdoors. How you doing, Cuzz?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying looking at those photos from your weekend. It does my heart good, because I get these comments all the time. Man, that's what it's all about. But that is what it's all about.
Yeah, it's interesting. I posted it, and you're active, I know, on Mississippi Whitetails as well on Facebook. I posted it there, and I checked this morning, like 300 likes and lots of comments. People just in Mississippi, this is part of our culture. I really feel for people who don't understand it and don't really have the opportunity to enjoy what we have to enjoy. I think most of us got it from our fathers and our grandfathers, and some people, as you and I have discussed before, get it from friends. They get a little later in life, but once they get hooked, they want to then start to pass it on. It is part of the outdoor heritage in Mississippi. But man, the memories we're making, buddy, it's so incredibly important to not only ourselves but our family, isn't it?
It is. In raising kids, I had all girls, and we did outdoor stuff. They were into different things, but now I have grandkids, 3 boys and 1 girl, and they all get it. They're comfortable out there. They understand where meat and protein comes from, and it just draws us closer together. Yeah, and we do kind of live in a bubble, but you see great comments from all over the country. Deer hunting's a big deal in Michigan and Wisconsin and all in the Midwest. But yeah, something special about down here. It really is.
It's great to talk about sort of that field to table lifestyle and what that's all about, and help people understand the ethical aspects of it and why we're so lucky to be in a state like Mississippi that has so many ways to enjoy the outdoors. And as we sort of barrel toward the opening of gun season in Mississippi, it's a great reminder. I mean, thank goodness we got some good weather that's really cooperating for us. Hey, listen, I want to share a picture with you. And what I want you to do is describe it to the radio audience. And then, of course, those who are watching on YouTube or SuperTalk TV or Facebook, you see the picture. But what is this picture? First of all, describe the picture, Cuzz, and then tell us what it means to you.
Well, that was yesterday afternoon or Saturday afternoon, whenever it is, and the youth season's open, and you got all three of my grandsons. Matt Cranky's in the middle with a crossbow. Matt's on. I'm looking at him. He'd be on the left. Walker, my other grandson's on the right, and Walker brought one of his buddies, and they wanted to bow hunt, and I was like, they know how much I love doing that, just because I just do. But they had the option; they could bow hunt or gun hunt, and they all wanted to bow hunt. Even Cranky said, "Pop, I want to take my crossbow, but I want to get in a tree stand." So yesterday was his first. That was another milestone. Cranky got to get in the tree stand. I hung a lock on right by it up there for his dad. But when I took that picture, I was just thinking, what a journey I've been able to get these boys to help them get involved. And now they want to bow hunt and they're going by themselves. We've been up and down the safety line and the harnesses. They got it all. And they're like, "Pop, I got this." And it's like, okay, I'm going to take the picture, then I'm going to kind of walk away. But that's enough just to watch them enter the woods by themselves, totally confident. It's like, it was almost okay, mission accomplishment. But I still love hanging out with them. It's just priceless.
Oh, I sent you a little video that I put together from the weekend, and people can watch the video of our youth hunt weekend at the SuperTalk Mississippi Facebook page if you want to go take a look at it. But in the video, it's about the sights and the scenes and the downtime in the camp together, just enjoying each other, just roasting marshmallows and wrestling and laughing and just playing games together and looking for deer and all the things that you do. The actual harvesting of the deer is certainly the cherry on top, but man, that's not what it's all about, is it?
No, I learned that. I kind of grew up like that because I grew up hunting the Homachita National Forest, Sandy Creek Wildlife Refuge, and all that. But some of the most fun times were, camping in an old Econoline van, or the first hunting camp I joined. I get that, and you want to pass that on. I don't know if they'll ever be as excited as I was at that age, but golly, you just want it to be such a part. My youngest grandson, Cranky, I filmed him doing everything, and he's a YouTube star. He's just crazy big in my world. But I put a video up last week of his first bow kill. I call it a bow kill. It's a crossbow, but to them, it's archery hunting, because we get to talk about broadheads and fletching. And he killed a deer, and he shot it, and he said, "Pop, that's my first one with a bow." And I went, wow. But the comment he made after that, I kept filming. He was sitting in the blind with no boots on. And I asked him, I said, "Why didn't you have your shoes on?" He said, "They're too small." And I got 500 comments about, "Cuz you need to take that boy shoe shopping." There wasn't one comment about a crossbow or anything else. It's like, people get it. That's what it's all about.
It's interesting. Of course, on your podcast, Fistful of Dirt, we get to hear about Cranky. We get to hear about your grandsons in general, but Cranky actually has kind of taken on a life of his own, hasn't it?
Yeah, Cranky took on a life of his own. But most kids, little kids, I've been filming them my whole life. They kind of clam up when you turn the camera on. He doesn't even acknowledge it's there. His brain works different. And people love little kids. They love dogs and food. And Cranky is just, he's very unique. And his older cousin, his older brother, they handle that well. You would think they'd be jealous, but they're not. He's just one of the gang. And he's 5 years younger than everybody, so he's had to grow up pretty.
Kind of reminds me of the Little Rascals, man. That's what I think of when I think of Cranky. But it's got to be cool, first of all, with your love of the outdoors and the opportunity to be able to introduce it and enjoy that heritage with your grandsons, but to be able to share that with the world through your social media following and your connections through Mossy Oaks, that's special, isn't it?
It is, and people expect good messages from me and us, and I've never been about how big was the buck or what it scored and all that. I'm like you. I want them to feel that other stuff. We had a close encounter with Matt the other day on one of his first bow hunts, and he got, deer spooked and they saw him and he run off. He sat there contemplating and he turned his head and he said, Pop, what are we having for supper?
Right.
What a great question. You just scared off your possibly first bow kid. Man, they get it. And that's what I love sharing.
We're enjoying a conversation about family and the outdoors with Cuzz Strickland. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. See you after this break.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have the pleasure of having my friend Cuzz Strickland from Mossy Oaks with us today. And we're talking about the family and the outdoors. Cuzz, you know what was so special to me, though? I've had the opportunity to hunt with my two nephews, Peter and Nico, for the last 2 or 3 years, and to teach them a beautiful love of the outdoors. Not only hunting, but we also fish offshore together. Their dad loves to fish. Her dad loves to hunt. He actually coached the soccer team that Nico is on, so that Nico could come on up here and hunt with me and my son Jordan. But the opportunity to kind of be with them during those wonderful times, and then I've got 4 grandkids that are coming up now, and they're not quite old enough to hunt, but it's like this whole generation. We got the next generation, then the next generation behind them. And I hope to live a long life so I can continue to enjoy it with them. And then my friend Jake Carter had his daughter Ava with us, and Ava hunted last year and she didn't have an opportunity to shoot. And her first couple of hunts this year, she didn't have an opportunity to shoot. Actually, she could have shot a doe on the first hunt, and her dad said, "Why don't we wait?" And of course, he was regretting waiting. And then as this divine intervention would have it, this beautiful, like 5 or 6 year old 8-point came out. It weighed 209 pounds, Cuzz. It was just a beautiful deer. And she dropped it. And, when I got there, I mean, of course, Nico had just shot a deer, and it was in the woods. We were going to need help getting it out. And we came on around and met Jake and his daughter at what we call the East Field. And she was in tears. It was so special, man. I mean, good Lord, buddy. I mean, you can't. How do you trade those moments for anything?
Well, you can't, and that's what it's. You hate to keep saying that's what it's all about, but I've seen it. I've seen it at every level with, 60-year-old veterans that have never hunted before, and catch a dream kids who you don't know if they're going to hunt again or not. And I've seen how therapeutic that can be. And we're blessed. My kids were blessed. My grandkids were blessed. They were going to have it put to them on a silver platter. Not everybody has that option. So anytime you can share it, especially with somebody that may not get it, man, you're passing on way more than some venison or a good weekend. It changes their mindset sometimes. It's pretty special.
Well, listen, the last one to shoot, so all 3 kids get their first bucks, all 3 8 points. The last one to shoot was my nephew, Peter, and my son, Jordan, was with Peter. And he sent a video this morning of their hunt, and he says to Jake and me, this is Jordan talking, my heart rate was 250. He didn't even have the gun, man. And then he said the shooting house was rattling. But you know what? I felt the same way when little Nico shot. Man, it was just I was excited for him. We could see those horns. We already had a 5-point out in the plot, and here comes this 8-point. You could see it walking through the woods, man. And I thought, this is it, Nico. This is it. And of course, by then you could just hear his breathing. I mean, it just. You can't replicate those moments. They become incredible memories for these kids. They will never forget it. They'll want more of it. The more time they spend in the outdoors, the more they learn about ethics and morals and safety and life. And they learn to look up to people that they can respect and trust. And I mean, they take those life lessons into adulthood and become great citizens of the community as a result of those experiences. That's certainly been my experience. And I know that's been your experience too.
Yeah, you got to have a giving heart. I said it many, many, many years ago. the hunter goes through 4 stages. The first stage is you just want to get one, whatever it is. Second stage is you want to get more than you can fill in the back of your truck. And the third stage is you want to kill the biggest one ever to live. And the fourth stage is it just kind of becomes who you are. And once you get to stage 4, then you're just the guide and the chauffeur and the deer cleaner and the cook. That's the best stage.
Hey, that's where I've been. I'm 65 now, but I've been there probably since I was in my 40s, to be honest with you. I can remember a time over 10 years where I never shot the gun. I was just sitting with my sons and enjoying watching them. In fact, there was a time actually my son Jordan killed a beautiful 10-point. He was long since old enough to go out by himself. And I said, Jordan, you mind if I join you today? He said, sure, Dad. We went and sat in a 2-man leaning ladder stand. And we got there and watched the wood ducks, and it was just a beautiful scene. And, said, I don't think we're going to see anything today. What do you think? It's kind of warm that day. And he said, no, I don't think we're going to see anything either. We'll just sit here and watch these wood ducks. What a beautiful moment. And we looked over to the left, and there were some canes. And walking through those canes was this beautiful 10-point, nearly 50-inch deer 10-point. And he dropped it, and we both looked at each other and said, that wasn't supposed to happen. But, when you least expect it is when that great memory starts to unfold. Isn't that right?
Yeah, you got to recognize a defining moment. Some people can pick them out, and some people can't. But you'll have a lot more outdoors than you will, sitting at your phone or whatever you do. So the kids that get to share it with us are blessed, and we're blessed to be sitting there with them. And not a better place to learn about life. I had all girls, and we would talk about stuff in the deer blind that we would never, ever talk about at the supper table anywhere else. And to me, that was the biggest blessing of all is that time, because that's the most valuable thing you have. I don't care if you got a lot of land or whatever. So,
well, before we started hunting together, we were fishing together, and I used to say that, when we would go offshore, we'd be in the boat together for a long period of time. I mean, up to 10 hours in a day we'd spend in the boat together. And during that time, you can't run off, you don't have Wi-Fi, so you can't be on an iPad. But back in those days when my sons were growing up, we didn't have the new smartphone technology. But still, you had this time in the boat together where I was able to teach them, when you're 100 miles offshore, when you say something like you don't usually get a second chance when it comes to safety, you got to pay attention first time. You can't. Some people don't get a second chance. To teach them at a very young age how important that is. And they begin to take those lessons into everything else in life. And of course, by the time they get into, deer stand with you, they've been hearing it most of their life about you don't get a second chance often in the safety world. Safety's always got to come first. And then, of course, when they go out by themselves, by the time they go off by themselves, you're nervous, but you prepared them. It's just like you're talking about letting your grandsons and their friend go off and strap to a tree with their all their safety harnesses and all that. You've done your job now, man. It's now time for you to just kind of watch them sort of go off and spread their wings and enjoy the outdoors on their own. That's cool to get them to that stage in life.
It is. It's been the coolest blessing I've ever had. And now they're watching their buddies, and you've done good when you see them. Hey, where's your harness, and that tree's got a lifeline on it. So you made an impact. And as tough as it is for my wife, their yaya, she was like shaking her head. They're too young. You got to let them go. You just got to let them go do it so they can have as much fun as you did.
There's no doubt about that. Hey, listen, in the short time we have left, I just want to compliment you on your Fistful of Dirt podcast. It's really doing well. And I can tell you enjoy doing it, but you got some great guests on that show.
Well, I appreciate it. And, it's like I've told people from the get-go, everybody's got a story. You just got to pull it out of them. And people love stories. It's not as in-depth sometimes as the Gamekeeper podcast. They utilize Mississippi State, Dr. Bronson, and all that. And I kind of look for characters because characters never go out of style. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been quite an education for me. But yeah, I got a lot. I got a great one on this week. One of my favorite people, Dwight Jones. If you ever been to a DU or a NWTF or a Rocky Mountain, he's the auctioneer. His stories were amazing. And I had no idea you had to do all that stuff, but it's a good listen. And like a lady told me one time, she said, I put your podcast on all my boys' phones. And I said, really? She said, yeah, they love hunting and fishing, but yours is G-rated. And I was like, well, that's a good thing.
It is. And you go back, and I found myself just describing you to a young friend who wasn't aware of how the, sort of the advent of outdoor TV and what hunting the country was all about, et cetera. And you're quite a personality. If you think back in time, man, you've met some characters in your life in the outdoor industry, haven't you?
Oh, a bunch. I mean, from Supreme Court judges to, one of the cool. I spent time in a blind with Jack Nicklaus. Saw him kill a deer with a bow and arrow. The people, it's always amazing. It's like the cream comes to the top. Jack Nicklaus didn't care about bow hunting when we were filming him for our TV show. But his boys liked it, so he got into it. And again, being outside, being outdoors, you just meet the best people, and it's been a real blessing. I got to take Coach Mike Leach turkey hunting last year, and when he pulled up, I said, "Now, Coach, I don't follow football real close, so we're just not going to talk about it." And he said, "Thank you, Lord." And we talked about everything you can imagine. He's an interesting guy, but it's like they're just people, and they want to talk about the outdoors. So,
everybody, as you say, everybody's got a story. Listen, Cuzz, we're out of time, but this has been Cuzz Strickland. I've really enjoyed visiting with you as we honor family in the outdoors. When we come back, we have William McKinley from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. We'll see you after this.
This is SuperTalk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. If there's a theme for today's show, it's hunting in the outdoors with family. A family that hunts together or fishes together, enjoys the outdoors together, stays together. I really enjoy visiting with Ronnie Cuzz Strickland from Mossy Oaks. He's become a good friend. He's been on the show 2 or 3 times, and he's passionate. He's what I refer to as one of those ambassadors in Mississippi that represents us to the rest of the United States in his travels across this nation. And as we continue to push forward the whole concept of Mississippi as the capital of the outdoors in America, but loving hunting with family, that's kind of what we're all about. That's what the outdoors means to so many of us. And as we again barrel toward the start of gun season for white-tailed deer in Mississippi, people, I think, reflecting a lot about where they got their love of the outdoors from. And our next guest is really no exception to that rule. Let me welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors my good friend William McKinley, who is the deer program manager for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. How you doing, William?
I'm doing well, Ricky. Doing real well.
So we are barreling toward the season, man. And look, we had all that drought, and we had one rain after we planted in 3 weeks, just enough to start the food plot up. And then we got another really good blast of water. It really started to come up. And then this weekend we got another blast, and it cooled down. Look, all of the food plots on the 3 farms that I lease all look amazing. It just has a way of turning out, doesn't it?
So those food plots, yeah, they're a little bit later than usual, but man, for the past week, they're so green. They're growing so well. They love these cooler temps, and deer are hammering them.
We have one farm over in Shula, and my son Jordan went over and did some hunting on what we call the middle plot, and he said it was just eaten down to a nub already. I mean, just so much pressure. I guess they've been waiting, but this is an area where there's a lot of acorns on the ground. It's a tree farm, about a 250-acre tree farm,
Yep.
And so, deer are just rummaging through, getting lots of acorn. What are you hearing about the acorn crop this year?
Well, Ricky, I really wanted to address it because around my house in north central Mississippi, I would rank it as completely poor.
Yeah.
I looked at a place in Madison last week, and swamp chestnuts were littering the ground. There was a lot of those. There wasn't that good of a red oak crop. So I haven't heard of a good red oak. So that's your water oaks and your cherry barks and all. It seems that they're very spotty. These white oaks will go ahead and sprout really soon, and they won't carry over past early December, mid-December. So that'll really drive deer into the food plots. So I'm expecting that always increases visibility. It makes hunting, it makes it a lot easier. Deer coming in food plots earlier, they're more visible, they're moving more because that belly is what drives that movement most of the time.
Yeah, that may explain why we had such a good hunt Saturday. Last year we had to work hard and, finally got all three kids, the three kids that were hunting a doe. But to see buck activity early, we're starting about 4:00 up until dark. We had really good buck activity, and that's rare. We don't usually see that, this time of year. We'll get on opening season this coming weekend. We'll usually get one or two really good deer because we got a lot of hunters and they're spread out across 3 farms. But we only hunted 1 farm, and 3 really good 8 points. 2 of them younger deer, but great first bucks for the kids, and the third one a very nice mature deer. But maybe that explains it. Maybe we don't have as many acorns in the woods as we thought.
Yeah, maybe not. And I tell you, belly drives them until the rut kicks in. It's driving movement. So that hunger factor, they got to eat, 3 to 4 gallons of food a day. A mature buck does. So when food's somewhat limiting, you're going to see more of them.
Hey, one of the things that Cuzz Strickland said to us offline that I want to repeat here on the air is that when he travels the United States, and he's multiple states during the week representing Mossy Oaks, the work that you guys are doing is nationally known. He's very proud of the work that you guys are doing, and I'm not surprised because you've done some incredible work, and we've talked about it here on the show. But congratulations on having sort of your name beyond Mississippi in ways that is really contributing to the whitetail community all across the United States. So congratulations, my friend.
Well, thank you much. I admit I work with some really great guys and girls out there that are dedicated, and they're all hunters too, Ricky. Everybody that works for us nearly are hunters as well. So I tell people a lot, we do this out of selfish ambition.
Yeah, right. I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Hey, listen, God bless you and your family. My condolences to you on the loss of your father just 10 short days ago. And I would not be bringing you here to this moment, especially with the sort of the theme of the show being family, without your permission and without you urging me to kind of tee this up. But your father meant a lot to you just in general, but he was sort of your introduction to the outdoors. Anyway, God bless you, my friend. Tell me about your dad.
Ricky, my dad, I was born to a young dad. He was quite young, but he got me in the woods when I was big enough to walk. I was on a dove field with a BB gun. I took my first deer when I was 6 with a 20 gauge shotgun and buckshot sitting beside him, but that stock was too long. I had to tuck it underneath my armpit and lean down and get a black eye every time I shot it, and I had that black eye with pride. He kept me in the woods. My mom tells a story that they were Christmas shopping when I was about 11 and didn't have very much money, didn't have much money at all. And Dad was picking out a new gun for me. And she said, Tommy, we just don't have the money. And he said, look, if I can keep him in the woods, I know where he's at. And so we're going to spend money, even money that we may not have right now. And hey, you know what? It worked. It did work. So I challenge all those dads out there that are listening to this to get your kids out, get them out early and get them out in the woods, because that love of nature has led me. Here I am as a statewide deer program coordinator for an entire state. And I would say one of the best state wildlife agencies in the country, the best, I think. And here's the position I set. And I'm there because of Dad getting me in the woods when I was very young. So, yeah, it matters. It matters a lot.
So many incredible memories. I talked to Cuzz, the first two segments about the opportunity that he and I have as we get older to be able to share that with our kids and our grandkids and in my case, my nephews and my friends' kids. The moments, man, what it means to them. I live in the moment. I try to do everything I do in the moment, and I try to soak it all up. And I look at them in the eyes, and I love them, and I try to just soak it all up, because there's no guarantees about tomorrow, man. We all know that, and your dad's passing is another example of that. But the reality is, the life lessons that we're teaching young people that my grandfather and fathers taught me, your father taught you. It changes your life. It makes you a better person. It helps you ethically and morally. It's important, isn't it?
Very much. And those lessons, I remember one time being behind him. We were squirrel hunting, and I was standing right beside him, but a rabbit got up, and it was rabbit season, and everything was legal about what I did, except I took a shot he wasn't expecting, and I was a young little guy, and that scolding that I got, it's still sticking here, and here I am, 48 years old. So that gun safety lesson that I got in the middle of the squirrel woods that day, that kind of stuff mattered. And so.
Yeah. Here's the thing, man. Again, Cousin, I talked about this too, that these lessons about safety, these lessons about way I used to say it to my sons, and what I said at the beginning of the show was simply that when we were in the boat together, I often said that you don't often get a second chance when it comes to safety, especially when you're hunting, for goodness sakes. And, I teach them, if you accept possession of a gun, immediately check to make sure it's not loaded. That's the first thing you do. And of course, there's a series of events you can do after that, of course, but you can't take that stuff for granted. And I remember very distinct lessons that I got from my dads and my grandfathers about that. I mean, you can't take anything for granted. In fact, I'll tell you a story about a 16 gauge that's right over here leaning against the wall, old Winchester 16 gauge that my grandfather had, that he passed to my father. My father passed to me, and now my son Jordan had a really great experience with it last year. I'll tell you about it when we get on the other side of the break. But, William, your work is incredible. We honor your father in so many different ways by you being in that position, and people leave legacies. And his legacy, I'm sure there's many more pieces to it, but one of the most significant legacies he left is you. And look what we get to do, the work that you're doing, the fact that what you're doing is renowned, and the work that Mississippi is doing is leading the way around white-tailed deer in this nation. What we're learning through the collar program and the other stuff that you're doing, I can't overstate how important that is to our understanding about the resource and how to better manage it, how to be a better hunter, et cetera. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with William McKinley from the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's the deer program manager there. We'll see you after this break.
We live in one of the best places in America to enjoy the outdoors. So let's talk about it. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend William McKinley with us. And William, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And God bless your family and you for sure. So sorry about your father's passing.
Thank you.
I mentioned to you that I wanted to tell you this quick story. My son has gone through all these different challenges as a hunter. And so he went through, obviously the gun challenge, and then he wanted to put himself in certain situations with the gun, and then he got into bow hunting. He wanted to put himself in certain situations with the bow. And then he went through a stage over the last couple of years where he wanted to kill a deer with the 16 gauge that his great grandfather passed to him. And it's a single shot, Winchester 16 gauge, and he had a good chance the year before. Now, he shot a deer last year, but the year before, he had a really good chance. He got a video of it and everything, but a doe got wind of him, and just as he was about to pull the trigger, this 10 point that was like less than 20 yards from him. He was on the ground in a kind of a makeshift ground blind, and the deer spooked. So that didn't work out for him. Then last year he went on a mission. He set himself up, and it's one of the different farm that we lease. And sure enough, man, here comes a nice 8-point with locked down on the doe, and he shot it and dropped it. And he called me literally in tears. He could, just he had worked so hard for the meaning of it, that he wanted to do it with his great grandfather's gun. And it was just very emotional. And, one of the kids that killed a deer this past weekend, Ava, when I got there with her father, Jake, and Ava were there together looking at this beautiful, 209-pound mature 8-point, she was in tears. And, I said, it's going to be okay. She was just so excited and so caught up in the moment. You can't make those moments up. Those moments happen so naturally and so wonderfully in the woods, and you carry those memories with you forever, don't you?
You do. I was telling you off air that a lot of those hunts with my dad, I look back at a picture, I can remember the weather. I can remember the view from the stand, all of that is etched in from many of those hunts from back when, and successful and non-successful. You tend to remember the ones where you got something a little better, but they all kind of stick in memory. And as he was getting older, those memories meant so much more when he couldn't get out and actually get out and hunt anymore. And wow, great times.
Yeah. Okay. So look, as again, we literally barreling toward whitetail deer gun season in Mississippi. What do you look for in the season, real quick?
So we've already had some cold weather. We've already had some killing frost across a lot. I mean, my whole pasture was covered in frost this morning again. That's killing a lot of native browse. I anticipate high observations this year. All our numbers, all the parameters show the deer herd has been increasing for the past few years, Ricky. We got more deer, and when you look at our number of older bucks, we got more older bucks than we've probably ever had in history. So as far as 4-year-old and older, we've got a lot of bucks out there. We've got a lot of deer out there. We want hunters to take more deer. We need to kind of get this population, this growth of population in check, because, man, my wife drove home from Kosciuszko the other day. It was 20 miles. She saw 36 deer right at dark in 20 miles. I mean, that herd's growing. So, but I think it's going to be a very good weekend. The weather looks great. Hot weather later in the year can hurt us, but right now things just look fantastic. Deer ought to be flooding into food plots.
It really got started off with a bang, man. I mean, literally. I mean, you think about how warm it was, and then we get in sort of the heart of youth season, and man, we finally get the rain that I mentioned, and the temperature drops. It's going to be kind of cool all week long going into the weekend. I think last I looked, it's still going to be in the upper 20s. By at some point during the weekend. Man, that should just keep them on their feet. It ought to be a lot of fun. Hey, why don't you do this to remind people, don't take safety for granted, for goodness sakes. Don't get so caught up in it that you just make sure you keep safety first. Talk to them about that real quick.
Gun safety and tree stand safety. As soon as I got here, I'm at the Leake County Extension Service. They're having the big Leake County Wildlife Expo tonight, by the way. And so be a big event. We're here scoring some deer. Officer walks in and goes, I had to work another hunting accident. Another tree stand, the guy hadn't checked the straps in a long time, and it ended up falling. Look, that's so easy to avoid. Just check it out. Keep safety first.
Yeah, go to the Wildlife Fisheries and Parks website and look up safety and just go through the list. Don't take anybody's life for granted, for goodness sake, just because you're in a rush to get out into the outdoors. Anyway, it's been a pleasure, my friend. William, again, God bless you and your family. Thanks for sharing that story with us today. It was a pleasure to hear your love of the outdoors and your father's love of the outdoors. Have a great day, my friend.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for joining us today on Super Talk Outdoors. Have a great time, and we'll see you next Monday.